So
So, hi, good evening, everyone, and good
actually, I
morning
need
to
to
Gautam. Uh,
I
yeah,
need
please.
to introduce both of you before you can proceed. So I'll
Okay, please.
okay.
Yeah.
So hello everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Praktani Adda. I'm excited to introduce our speaker, Kumar Goutam, senior applied scientist at Amazon and an alumnus of RKMV 2008 batch, who will talk about data science is everywhere. And the session will be moderated by Anupam Da from the same batch. So without further ado, let's get started. Please mute your microphones and note that this session is being recorded. Over to you, Anupam Da.
Thank you, Krishna. Hi, good evening, everyone, and good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are all joining. Just to give a brief, I am Anupam, and I will be moderating this session. Uh, as Krishna said about Gautam, if I just recap some memories from Vidyapit days, Gautam has been one of those like rarest breed of people you meet once in the lifetime. He has been like continuously the batch topper, and at the top of it, his memory has been is quite impeccable. He used to remember everyone's registration number on tips, roll number, registration number, everything. Uh, if currently I came to know that he is like a chalta firta recommendation system for movie. If you want to know about like what type of movie you want to watch, he has a very good command on that. He has watched all those IMDb rated movies and all. Uh, and also quite a non-partisan personality from the school, I must say. I distinctly remember he used to be umpire in cricket matches and did quite a justice to that. Uh, many of our teachers they used to call him Butru. That was the dark name, the call name. We also used to call him, and that was so sweet in the sense. But whatsoever, he has been quite academically topper person from the beginning, and he has been All India rank 60 in IITG 2010, and then he went on to pursue his BTech from IIT Bombay, and then he went on to do PhD from Columbia University in Operation Research and Data Science. And data science is something where he is going to speak more and more about it today. Today, he is a senior applied scientist at Amazon. And what he does there and what Amazon is doing, maybe we will get to know more about it throughout this session and his presentation. Uh, Data science as such is not something very new. It has existed. It has a history since I think the World War One or two during the Turing's work. Uh, but and over the period of time, different industry has embraced it, and also it has dumped it, data science time and again. But over last 1 decade, what we have seen is that this data science as a subject, as a course, or as a method to do everyday work
Yeah.
has become highly a disruptor thing in our everyday life, in our life choices. That's why, like, optimists say data is the new oil. I come from the agriculture research background. Many people in our field say data is the new soil for agriculture. If you look from the perspective of division of labor, from the classical lens of labor, you can also say data is the new toil, in the sense it's doing the labor for the organization. But if you talk to critics like many of the computer science critics, they will say it's actually snake oil. So there are diverse perspective around it, but we cannot deny this fact that data science has irreversibly been embedded in our life, and we need to understand. And I think if anyone at any point of life, any point of career, wants to make a transition towards data science, Gautam's presentation and his knowledge will be a great help towards that also. So Without much discussion, I would like Gautam to take the stage and start his presentation. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Anupam. I think the introduction was pretty good. With epic memories, we all have good ones mostly, so that's pretty nice. There's a lot of folks remember a lot of things, and we can say more about Anupam later on. But as Krishna Vallabh was saying earlier, he is the poet in our class, and he still writes, and we all implore him to continue writing. Eventually, he would be publishing something, so we'll get there sooner or later. Okay, so first of all, thanks the host committee for organizing this. I know it takes a long time to organize. Like there's a schedule of things which is planned weeks, months, and even almost a year in advance. So I know that it's a very good thing going on. I don't know exactly when it started or how it started, but I think it has been going on for a while. This is 61th like Adda, so really excited about this and good to see that this has been continuously going on. So I'll be briefly talking about, what I have done a little bit in the last 10 years or so, or briefly talking about what exactly data science is as the way I see it. I do have a presentation, but it's only like a few slides. Beyond that, I want this to be a very open session from the perspective of you can ask me anything related to data science or my life experiences so far. जितना भी मुझे समझ में आया, like, I will try to answer that or try to share my perspectives. And in general, like, feel free to interrupt me even during the presentation. Like, raise your hand, use the chat, and promise the moderator if I miss some chat or something like that. Like, he will reach out to me. So just letting know, it's not like I have a 2 hour presentation that I will be just like speaking forever. So the presentation is very short. I'll be just like going over some high level things, stopping in the middle. And depending upon group ka, jisme bhi might be like interested in more, a little bit knowing about things, you can let me know and then we can go over that. Okay, so let me start the presentation in just a second. Is the full presentation visible or did it go away?
It's visible, Dada.
Okay, the full presentation, right? Because I don't know what Zoom has changed. Okay, just let me know if the slides don't change. So a brief introduction. I mean, Anupam already introduced me, but I'll just like quickly recap. Went to school at RKM, and I still to this day consider that the main, the foundational thing of anything I have done so far. Still very grateful. One thing I do, like that the teachers were amazing, and to this day I am in contact with a lot of them. So even एक week पहले, as you know, there was 5th September Teachers Day. I usually try to call most of them who I had studied with and जिनका भी contact मेरे पास है. So that's pretty, I would say, nice. I do take pride in the fact that we went to this school where network is pretty strong. And again, talk more about that. So that was it, 2003 to 8, 5 saal. We went during a time where we only could to go start from class 6. I think I see a few senior dadas who would have started from class 4 even. But we were only for 5 years there mostly. And then went to IIT Bombay for college. So that was 4 years from 10 to 14. वहाँ पे mainly studied electrical engineering, and they do have a very strong maths department as well. During my second year there, I got interested more in math. I mean, I even joke कि know a lot more professors in math department at IIT Bombay than electrical engineering. अभी भी मैं वापस जाता हूँ तो I tend to meet a lot of professors from math rather than electrical engineering. So from third year onwards, my core focus shifted to more sort of doing applied math, probability kind of stuff rather than continue to doing like core electrical engineering like chip designing or circuit designing, those kinds of things. So since then, I think the focus had been shifted towards more like math heavy, and which continued even after college. Uh, if someone sees a gap between 2008 to 2010, I mean, it's not purposeful. Like, it's not like I'm hiding something. So 8 to 10, I was at Kota, as a lot of us were. So just mentioning that as well. After that, I went to Columbia University in New York for my graduate school. There, I was in the PhD program in what is called operations research. So in India, I think when I was doing undergraduate in IIT Bombay, I don't think at that time any college or engineering college or university had a proper operations research department, like separate from anything. Like in most colleges, you have electrical engineering department or computer science or mechanical engineering. I don't think I knew of any college which had a totally separate operations research department. But this field has been around forever, like at least since 1930s or 40s. And most of the big universities in the US and even UK usually have a dedicated operations research department. I did not know about this department or field up until I would say when I graduated in 2014, and I worked for 1 year as an applied scientist in a company called SAS. And that time I found out about this field that it's heavily related to what I would call at that time math and statistics. Like a lot of math and statistics applications were involved in these, operations research field. And that's how I got exposed to that. I was curious that what is, where is this coming from? What would be the department closest to this? Let's say if I were to ask for people who could help me understand this back in India, and mechanical engineering and electrical engineering were the two closest which were coming to this. And now I see a lot of what they call interdepartmental centers in most like big colleges in India. Like they will have a center of sort of operations research which usually has professors from mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, even computer science and math, because those are the kinds of things needed for this. So you can think that as a department or as a field, it's a very applied field. People like to solve problems which mostly sort of exist. It's not purely theoretical problems. And overall, mostly in India, when these are things are developing, right now it's still a interdisciplinary thing comprising of people from other departments. Even in the US, when universities have a totally separate department for that, I've seen they have a lot of professors who are still, the main professors in some other department, but they are also affiliated with this. And with the advent of this data science in the last, let's say, 10 years or so, now a lot of universities are also offering courses in data science, degrees in data science. So most of these degrees in data science are administered by this department. So that's where, like the foundational or core theoretical ideas or methodologies is being developed, whatever is used in data science. So that's the rough, high level idea of what the operations risk department is. And as a like a fun sort of fact, maybe the Second World War time when uh, people were sort of like involved in the Second World War, and after that Cold War के time थोड़ा सा when it became sort of more like US versus Russia, there was a lot of research in this department, and I think people both from US as well as Russia, just to one up like against each other, they advanced the field a lot. There was a lot of like optimization and stuff going on. Like I remember a funny thing where we were studying in a course in operations research about some kind of optimization, and जिनको पता है ऑप्टिमाइजेशन के बारे में थोड़ा, you have an objective which you try to either maximize or minimize. और उस problem में we learned very interesting thing that the US Army was trying to maximize something, कुछ attack का कर रहे थे, and the Russian Army was looking at the same problem but वो अपना losses minimize कर रहे थे. And eventually both of them are equivalent problems. We're talking about 1940s. They were not talking to each other because of course they were at war, but it's funny that after like when the papers or like the details are out after a few years, they found out that they had reached exactly the same solution, because the theory says that you will reach exactly the same solution, either you maximize or minimize. So that was very like interesting to see. Okay, so that's a little bit about operations research. Again, किसी के बारे में भी, if you want to know more detail, just like stop me and let me know. And more recently, I've been working at Amazon as an applied scientist. He almost 4 साल हो गए हैं. Like 2020, I started. This is just finished fourth year. Uh, Amazon as a company, I would say, is the largest company which employs a lot of PhDs and a lot of researchers related to operations research field. Uh, Mainly because of the applications where at Amazon, work in e-commerce, as well as the logistics part, like the supply chain wala part. They have to take care of so much inventory, so much products at such a large scale. उसको store करना है. They have to move those products to like people को deliver करने के लिए. All those kinds of things is exactly what we study in operations research. So it's not a surprise that Amazon is the largest sort of place where most people who studied operations research are. But it is an interesting fact that among at least the major companies, this is the company where a lot of operations research is happening. And पिछले 5-10 साल में a lot of research which the professors and academics do is coming from some problems which Amazon faces. Like Amazon will think that, okay, this is a problem, how can we solve this? So from that perspective, it is, I was pretty fortunate that it was a continuation of like my PhD work. जो भी PhD में काम चल रहा था, it was pretty similar to that, and I think after 4 years, it has become very similar to that. Okay, any questions here up until now?
So Indian companies like Flipkart and other e-commerce and the new age e-commerce companies like the 10-minute delivery apps, so do they also have positions for operations research?
Yeah, so the way to look at that is any company, any e-commerce company. So what I would like to call these companies ad platforms or matching companies. They have something where दो साइड से पीपल जा रहे हैं, लाइक तुम्हें कुछ ऑर्डर करना है, आपको कुछ ऑर्डर करना है, एंड किसी को लाइक समवन वुड बी फुलफिलिंग द ऑर्डर. सो इस टाइप के जितने भी कंपनीज होंगे, दे आर फंडामेंटली बेस्ड ऑन ऑल दीज पैरामीटर्स, ऑन ऑल दिस of their overall budget and research and development, like proper research may, then they will have these roles. Like as a fact, I did almost 1.5 months internship at Flipkart in Bangalore in my fourth year of PhD, because we were collaborating with the research department in Flipkart. So you can imagine, Flipkart is like large enough that they can afford a little bit of their overall budget on research. But any other company like Zomato or like Blinkit, कुछ भी like delivery company, once they become slightly large enough that they are willing to spend a little bit on research, then they will have rules like this. तो एकदम न्यू स्टार्टअप के पास मे भी नहीं होगा, but definitely after some time they will have rules related to this.
Thank you.
I think there is one question in the chat, like if you
Mhm.
plan to go for data science, what should be your ideal undergraduate degree? Statistics, mathematics, computer science. If you can give some idea about that.
Yeah, so I think if it's okay, because I do cover that towards the end. So अगर जिन्होंने भी question पूछा है, if they are okay with sticking towards a little bit longer, then I'm definitely discuss towards the end. So I will just like take it up there if that's okay. Okay. So if there's no question, let's see, what is data science or how do we view it. So first of all, I think Anupam already mentioned this, like as is the case with most things, it's not like very new. It has been in existence for a long time. Just that, becomes a very popular thing which a lot of people are doing. which happens with most of the things, the way that works. So the way we see it, it's like an interdisciplinary field. As I was like telling even about operations research, right? Like it is a field which is taking ideas or foundational theory background from a lot of other subjects or fields. So data science also does that. And at the core of this, the understanding is that you have a large data set, usually large, because the whole idea is that if you have a small data set, you cannot do a lot of things with that. The idea is that to extract something out of that, some kind of knowledge, some kind of insights you might have from the data, and then to apply that, because the first part is what someone can call data analysis only. But the data science part is after that, how do you apply that to solve a particular problem? So it's at a very high level at a core, this is what data science would be doing. And if you were to ask, okay, what is this interdisciplinary field? Like, what are the, like the different fields which are connecting this? जिसके कारण हमको इनको interdisciplinary बोलते हैं. So at the core of it, it is mathematics, statistics, and I would say computer science. Uh, and I mean, someone can argue that everything is math. I mean, people have a very different way of looking things. कि pure math है, physics is pure, like applied math. Everything is fine, but I think we have established different fields and different subjects of study more or less, and from that perspective, mathematics, statistics, and computer science, we consider them differently, like different to each other right now. So data science is effectively studying these three things in parallel and how to use that. And at the core of this, to do any kind of data science or solve anything, you have to build what we call models and algorithms. I mean, that is the core of doing any data science. Like if someone says that they are doing data science, they will be building models and they will be using or building algorithms. Now, the point is, if you are doing like a proper theoretical research in that, then you will be building an algorithm, let's say, on your own from scratch. But if you are just applying this algorithm, that also requires some level of understanding. And a lot of data science people, when they are working, they would be actually mostly applying these algorithms rather than, like making an algorithm of their own. But that also requires a lot of understanding and knowledge. I find this figure, this particular chart really interesting. It tries to give you a high level idea of what to think about data science from a current perspective when you think that some company or someone is working as in data science in a particular company. So this is, more, I think, from a point of view of when people are working in data science in a company. So on one side, you have the computer science. Other side, you have what we call statistics or mathematics, whatever it is, like the main theory background. And the third side, you have the actual business. This is where the company is, like e-commerce platform, delivery companies, whatever that is, matching companies. So that's the business side. And it tries to give you a sense key if you are using math and statistics and computer science only, then you are coming up what we called machine learning algorithms. So this is a phrase which I think a lot of you also would have already heard, कि machine learning कर रहे हैं. And that's has been, I would say, around again for a really, really long time. That's where the people working in machine learning are building like models, like new models and new algorithms. And I like this, like the intersection between just computer science and business. And that's precisely what software development or software engineers are. They are just using the computer science knowledge to help the business set up whatever they want to do. ऐप बनाना है, वेबसाइट बनाना है, ऐप में फीचर्स डेवलप करना है, whatever that is. And on the other side, when you are just have, let's say, statistical people working with business, this is what we call data analytics or business analytics. This was really popular up until like, let's say 10, 15 years ago when anyone who was a business analytics was an expert in using Excel. Because that time सारे data Excel में होते थे business K, and Excel has used to have a lot of like powerful capabilities, still does, to come up with analytics like charts, pie charts, graphs, whatever you want to do. And then when you combine all the three things, that's where the data science is sitting. Like you're trying to use your knowledge from computer science algorithms, you're trying to use your understanding and knowledge of statistics and mathematics and how do things work, and then you try to understand what the business is, and then you try to do data science. And the third part is important because companies may, if you want to work, like even let's say right now or today, I join a totally different new company. It will take some time for me to actually do data science because I have to understand the third part, the business part, which might be new to me. Like I would know the computer science background, I would know the math theory and statistics theory, but I might not know what the business is doing, kya karte hain wo, what exactly they are looking for. And to do that will require some time, and then only I can move to doing data science. So without that business part, you are only doing machine learning as such, basically. Any high level question here to just to get a sense of what we are seeing?
Okay, so there is one pending question.
Uh-huh.
Vivek has asked that Amazon has been in business for almost 30 years. So how much do you think of their ops is left to be optimized? Like to what extent they have lived?
Yeah, so so from my limited experience of working here for 4 years, I would say a lot. I mean, so as you can imagine that in that 30 years of existence, पहले 10 साल में they were mostly trying to make something work, right? Like I don't, as I said, most of the companies they don't start with building their research department until and there's a research company. I mean, उनका फिर job ही वही है. Like if there's a company like Pfizer, which is job is to develop vaccine and such stuff, of course they will have a research department dedicated from the beginning. But most of the companies don't start with a research department. So for the first, let's say 10 years or so, they were ensuring that whatever they are claiming to build, it's just operating, it's just working. After that comes the phase of, okay, can we optimize? Can we, like make sure that things can work even better? And then those work started. So from that perspective, it's pockets. Like there are some parts of Amazon where it's more or less fully optimized and they continue to work on improving some things here and there. But there's a lot of other things where they are just starting the research part of doing that things. Like even just 3 4 years ago only, they fundamentally changed how do they look at distributing and the whole supply chain in the US. Up until that year, like 15-20 साल से जिस भी point of view से वो देख रहे थे, they actually substantially changed because of like operations research people that they thought what could work better given the scale that Amazon currently is operating at. Like 10-15 साल पहले scale was a different thing. पूरे यूएस में जिनका प्रेजेंस या स्प्रेड था दैट वाज डिफरेंट सो दोज थिंग्स चेंज सो फ्रॉम दैट perspective I think there's still a lot of things to be optimized over. And the second thing is companies focus also change, like at one point they are trying to focus on improving something or building something that might change. I mean, I don't think past the sal pehle Prime Video was a thing for Amazon, but right now Amazon is trying to do a lot in Prime Video as well. And I can imagine that's a different problem than just making sure that तुम जो भी आप जो भी order कर रहे हो it's reaching to you on time. But again, that does require a lot of operations research and data science. So usme they have invested a lot. So these kinds of things exist. But to short answer, I think still quite a long time.
There is another question, Gautam, from Dattada that is data science just application of machine learning to business, or it's more than that? What else is required?
I mean, at a high level, it is effectively applying machine learning to business. The core understanding is how do you figure out, in some sense, what machine learning setting might work and might not work. And that's where understanding both part is critical in the sense that कि business का क्या requirement है, कौन सा business, like कौन सा problem solve करना चाह रहे हैं, those like business, and जो भी machine learning algorithms या models you might have heard of or know of, उनका details जानना पड़ेगा कि what might be the limitations of those particular setup. क्योंकि it's not like every machine learning algorithm can solve every other problem for business. But at a very high level, I think it is trying to use machine learning in your business application with the knowledge that you know how things work.
Okay.
Okay.
Just to ask a question on the top of this. So typically, when a data science team is built within a company, so do you also have people from diverse background like social sciences and all to understand like if there is some biases in algo and all those things?
Yeah, so from what I have seen, initially they might not have. I mean, I think it's more from a perspective of let's start to build something which works, and then they think about these things later on as an add-on, which is definitely not the right way, as most of the like researchers and people are finding in the current setup कि 15-20 साल से जो भी कर रहे थे, they did not think about these things, and now they are in some sense trying to like they're having a hard time how to incorporate for that. I have seen a lot of new teams which are building in a lot of companies, even at Amazon. They try to have people from diverse backgrounds from the perspective of the business side who can speak to or try to see that these other things which might not be directly be like the target of the problem they're trying to solve, just say like तुमने बोला कि bias वाला issue. So there will be people from the business who would be trying to ensure that they don't happen. But personally, I don't think every data science team has that in every company, because in the beginning, they just want to make sure that the problem is solved. And if they don't think about these things in the beginning, then whatever algorithm they use might not be doing well in terms of your bias or whatever the other things are. So I don't think they employ a totally like a dedicated person just to do those things. But the idea is that the diverse group of people they have in the business, they would be having enough different ideas and different domain knowledge that they will be able to catch these things effectively.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Sorry.
Just one more question.
Yep.
So how AI is impacting the data science field? It has come from Dattada again. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So AI is, I would say, a little bit more about how do we like use the current algorithms in a more efficient way, if anything. So the idea being, okay, let me put it this way, like even the data science, the machine learning ka theory, the theory had been in existence for quite a long time. But even like when I was talking to my professors during Columbia, like they used to say that, oh, we used to study all these algorithms. Now you can just like code up and see how this algorithm is actually working. And at that time they did not have computers, they did not have any like sophisticated ways to solve problems, like jada jada literally they used to do it by hand. So I think what helped data science explode in the last, let's say, 15 or whatever years is the availability of technology, that now you can have big supercomputers which can do a lot of things very efficiently and fast. So it's a little bit similar, that AI is, I would say, very generic and broad term. I mean, if anything, a lot of machine learning people would say that, yeah, machine learning, like we have been doing artificial intelligence when we started doing machine learning. But if we are thinking about AI the way we use recently in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years or so, then the science part will still be required to do any kind of AI. If you are trying to build a new model algorithm, then there is a significant part of science required. So data science is not going away. AI is important. For example, I cannot claim, or someone cannot claim that, okay, I don't need to learn about what AI is doing, because eventually a lot of other intermediate steps which I might be doing in data science right now, which might take a lot of time, or which I might be doing it myself, they would, like be much better or much faster if I replace that to do with AI. So that's where I think the way I see it, it can help to make things faster and more efficient.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
let's move. So, I mean, again, this is a very high level look of what someone in data science would be doing. The idea is that you have a bunch of data. I mean, we use the phrase big data just to give you a sense of scale. Like if you're talking about companies like Google or Amazon, they have a lot of data, as you can imagine. And the first step is very interesting to me because this is where a lot of people who study data science in, let's say, college or university, and they would start to come to work at a company. The first part is where they have not thought about that because that's not the focus of the courses. Because that is very important because you realize once you start working at a company that data is messy in the sense that it's not very well organized or clean or even accurate in a lot of cases, not very classified. So that first part is very important. And a lot of time people forget that when we study some algorithm or some model, we say take things for granted कि अरे ये तो मिल जाएगा, this data would be available, but that's not the case usually. And if you ask currently a lot of data scientists who have been working with companies, they would definitely say that a lot, like a large chunk of their time goes on in just getting the right data they need, be it data cleaning or data accuracy, and just looking out for, like, reaching out to people to get that, which you can ask them, they will say that they would not have expected when they started that this would be a significant chunk of their time to just get the data. And that's why it is important. I mean, a lot of companies, you might have heard the term like data engineers, uh, or like analyst even, they are in charge of like these steps that how to get you the data in a structure and a format needed. And then of course you try to do some kind of analysis on the top of that, and you try to employ statistics. And this is where I would say that this was more like business analytics or analytics. And from there to there, when you are trying to use your machine learning knowledge to that particular data analysis, that's where you build some new models or algorithms and you try to solve problems. And the output of anything eventually is a decision making system. Like कोई भी problem solve कर रहे हो, like, or trying to use an algorithm, at the end of the day you want to have a decision making system that what it is recommending. And of course, as we mentioned, that there's the knowledge part, that whatever data analysis we have done, I've extracted some knowledge and insights, and I want to use that to solve problems. Uh, yeah, I'll stop here for the general workflow overview with this uh, particular comic which I really like. Uh, that any data scientist or data analyst is inadvertently adding to creating more data, which is unavoidable. I mean, you are going to do more analysis on data, you are creating more data one way or the other. But it's not a bad thing. It's just a like fact that that will happen.
Okay. Just there was one curiosity I wanted to ask. So
Mhm.
we a lot of time feel that whatever we are talking in a house or with a friend, next day Amazon recommends that stuff or Facebook recommends that stuff. Is it that it's being recorded, or is it that there is some way through which it leads to that prediction, or it's just
So
yeah.
now, so my feeling is that it is getting recorded one way or the other through WhatsApp or whatever app you might have, because most of the time, like your WhatsApp or Instagram app, even if it's not open on your phone, I think depending upon the if someone actually goes to the settings and try to see what access it has to your phone, it will clearly say that it has mic access. So my sense is, I think it is trying to. So the way I see it, it's like it's on all the time. It's trying to look for keywords all the time, and the moment it hears something, it will just like recommend that. And I've experienced that myself. Like I was chatting with WhatsApp with a friend on WhatsApp about something about a credit card, And 2 day later, I see it in my feed. And I try to joke with my friends that I use it the other way. अगर मुझे कुछ खरीदने होता है तो I just like mention it to a bunch of people, and then I wait for 2 3 days and I start seeing discount ads and everything like that on my feed. Again, I'm just saying that like it won't work all the time, but there are ways to that. But bottom line is, I think they most of the time, because they are in constant sort of on state, and they're just trying to catch for keywords, and that's how they're getting that. They do have like a very good recommendation system that try to figure out, what to recommend. But I think if you're talking about the cases where you experience you something talking about something specific and ek do din baad wo recommend kiya, I think that's mostly because they were just like able to catch that.
Yes, right.
Okay.
If any other questions anyone have?
Well, I have like one query. So, if somebody is say in some research setup or something like that, so which softwares like he should follow for data science or machine learning? Like we have a bunch of open source softwares like R and Python. So which one is like? I mean, all of them are being used, but what would be your recommendation? Like which software should be most preferred?
Yeah. So yeah, again, definitely Python, but I would cover that, towards the end when I'm trying to say if someone wants to, let's say, move to this field, or even during studies, they are thinking of what to study in this field, what could be useful. I will come to that. But current, like short, quick answer, usually should be Python, just because so again, I will explain the reasons a little bit in detail, but the whole idea is that it's the open source software which most people use. And as you can imagine, like it's a crowd effect, right? Like जितने ज़्यादा data scientist जो चीज़ यूज़ करेंगे उसी में improvements उतने ज़्यादा होते रहेंगे. So I think that has been the case. I mean, literally अगर आज कोई बोले कि okay, all the data scientists in the world, let's move to some other setup like R and then start developing that, it's not like it won't be able to work. It's just that Python में लोग इतने काम कर रहे हैं, they are just constantly making improvements day by day. That's why it has been become very good. But okay, I'll cover that towards the end as well.
Okay, there is one more question.
Yeah.
Like you have mentioned that as a operational researcher or applied scientist, it's all about the game of optimizing or minimizing something. So if you can give some example of something your team has worked on, what you have optimized in the real world, like something like that.
Yep. Again, it will come after like these 2 3 slides when I describe the PhD work, and then I'll come to that part. Perfect. Okay, so I will have roughly 2 slides of what I did during the PhD. So there is this nice area of study called discrete choice model. That's basically the name of the field where at the heart of it, people were trying to understand how do usually people choose. Like when I give you a set of options, like how do you usually choose and think about things. So that was the idea behind coming up with this field. So psychologists, and I think I would say what we call behavioral economics, they have had this understanding for quite some time. But what was missing, at least until the time when this theory was developed, was a proper mathematical framework which could help explain and understand things. That's where these things were coming from. And one example which I would take, which might sound made up, but it's like nicely related exactly to that, is precisely what happens when you do online shopping. That अगर आज के डेट में अगर even if you want to buy as something as small like as a headphone, Flipkart पे Amazon पे कहीं भी आप जाओ, like you search for that, so you have a bunch of options. You have a decision process, right? You have some things in mind, and how do you exactly end up choosing? Rating देख रहे हैं, price देख रहे हैं, there are a bunch of things you are looking at, company देख रहे हो, whatever. But the whole point is there is a mathematical framework which had been developed to mostly explain the things we see, and then if that framework is correct, then how do you use that in real life? And there is this gentleman who had been a pioneer in this field. His name is Daniel McFadden. He is currently at Berkeley, if I'm not wrong. He got the Nobel Prize in economics in 2000 for precisely developing this discrete choice model theory. So my PhD work was primarily involved within this field. And when I started working, an important question which we wanted to solve is, so as you can imagine, he got the Nobel Prize in 2000. So of course the field he developed or work he developed were probably like 20, 30 years ago. It's not like you develop something and 2 years later you get something like a Nobel Prize. So up until from like almost 1970 या जब से choice model का एक core idea है usually which is not very wrong, I would say. I mean, like when you are developing this field from scratch from the beginning, this is something which you would expect to have. कि if I give you more choices, it's good, right? I mean, अगर मेरा aim है कि I want to let you choose something, and if I offer you more choices, there's like higher chance that you will end up choosing, because अगर मैं तुम्हें दो ही option दे रहा हूँ, maybe जो तुम्हें चाहिए वो like available नहीं है उस दो option में, but if I increase that option, like offering number of offerings to 10, then there's a high chance that you might end up choosing something. Can anyone think of any setting they have experienced, or maybe someone they think they might have experienced where this might be very wrong, that offering more things might not be very easy? I'll stop for a minute if someone had an answer or someone typed an answer. So the question is like, can anyone think of a setting where more choices might not always be good?
For me, the restaurant menu is a good example. If they give lots of choices, it's very confusing.
Exactly. Anyone else? Yeah, I mean, I would say it's quite similar. I mean, I think nowadays most of us do streaming, and for me, it was a like a real case, like something as Netflix. Like a lot of times, let's say if I don't know what I'm wanting to watch and just open Netflix, sometimes I see too many options and it's just overwhelming. And maybe you don't want to take the mental effort to see that, and you will just like मन नहीं कर रहा, बंद कर दो. I'm pretty sure this would have happened. And I think to Anupam's example, a lot of people I have seen, like when you are going out with a group of friends, and you are trying to see which restaurant you go to, बाहर से अगर menu दिख रहा है, and if the menu is like a proper book है जिसमें 6 pages हैं, you will say, you know what, we're not going in there. So this does happen. Like that's the point I think I'm trying to drive to. And in literature, we call this choice overload. When you offer someone so many choices that they feel like overloaded from that perspective. And this was a main part of my PhD research and work, that whatever mathematical models discrete choice model field had built up until that time, you keep giving people more choices, it will, the model will be happy that okay, people will choose something. And when I started working, there has been a lot of actual experiments and empirical studies showing that this is not the truth for a lot of cases. Again, we are not saying that this is never true. In a lot of cases, you keep offering people more choices, they will be happy. But there are a lot of settings, and in important settings, I'm not saying कि कोई obscure setting है एक जगह, like there are a lot of cases where this does not work. And what I was doing during my research with my advisor was to come up with a mathematical model or framework where this would be possible, or where this could be happening depending upon the model. Again, इस talk में I don't think I'm going to go into detail for that part. I mean, अगर किसी को जानना है, I'm happy to like connect to me later on. I have a small presentation of my thesis, which is like very mathematical, but again, it's a presentation. It's not like a full thesis where you can just try to get a sense of how we model that and how do we think of that. But that's a very high level idea of what the research was about. And I will tie back to the question which was asked just before, that to give an example of where we have optimized for something in my work. So in Amazon, I will come to that Amazon specific examples, but this is like an actual example, because the model which we built, we were trying to figure out if too many choices is bad, how many options we should show to like to you when you open Netflix. So that's an exact like problem where I am finding the correct or optimal amount of items, movies, TV shows, whatever it is, to recommend you. That should not be too much, should not be too less, so that you don't feel overwhelmed or you don't feel ki kuch hai nahi, and you just like leave. So that's something which we were able to do. Again, I'm not working at Netflix, so I don't know what exactly they are using currently. They're definitely doing something very good. But yeah, that's what the model we came up with and we were doing. Any high level questions about, let's say, the discrete choice part or this setup?
I think we have 7, 8 minutes more, and then we have some more minutes also if there are some Q&As.
Okay, let's try to about that. Okay, let's come back to Amazon example. So this was nice because I think it was very related to what I was doing during my graduate school. So I'll tell you like example of what we work on as a team and what we're trying to figure out. So this is again very simple example. I searched for shirts yesterday night on Amazon, and these are the multiple options popped up. And for people who have, let's say, done online shopping, they would know that there are literally thousands and 10 thousands of options for Amazon to show you if you search for shirts. So if I am Amazon, I have a lot of questions here a lot of problems here which I want to solve. I have a limited space, right? Screen may, I cannot show you more than whatever number of shirts. And this is exactly one screen. You can see like 10 options dikh rahe hain. Of course, there are multiple pages, but I don't think anyone go to page 3 of Amazon, any shopping result list. I have never been to be on page 2. So like, first question is, okay, then how do you choose which 10 shirts to show out of like 10 thousands of them? Then second thing is in order, right? Like पहला shirt कौन सा होगा, दूसरा कौन सा होगा, तीसरा कौन सा होगा, वो सब कैसे set करेंगे? And most important thing, prices. You can see like the prices are different. Again, I mean, Amazon in such is not setting the prices of individual items if they are sold by someone else, because as you know, Amazon and Flipkart are at core a marketplace where anyone can sell, right? And if I am selling something on Amazon, if you're selling, you set the price. Like Amazon is not changing that price. But a lot of products which Amazon is selling themselves, they can set the price because they are the seller themselves. So uske prices mein, they have to decide what the prices are. So that's the problem which we actually solving our team, that which shirts to sew, how many of them, where to place them in the order. And I will use a very technical term. If anyone wants curious, they can look it up later or ask me later. This is what we call assortment optimizer. Assortment is just like a set of things, like a basket of items. So we are trying to optimize the assortment, the size, kitne dikhane hai, and place, where to do that. And then second thing is which prices. Discount offer dena hai ki nahi, us type ka thing, which we call pricing optimization. I would say more in the last 2 years or so, the focus was more on the pricing part. Ki prices kaise fix karne hai. And interest of time, let me give 2 more slides and then like stop for question. Is that I like the pricing problem a lot, and there are a few key aspects of pricing which has developed in the past, I would say 20, 30 years or so. One is this idea of customer segmentation, where we say that we have different groups of people who would behave very differently to prices. Then we have something called dynamic pricing, where the idea is the price can change over time. Then what we have is how do you optimize for that? So just looking at these 3 things, let's say, or 2 things, can anyone think of which industry they would see these things very actively? And actually that was the industry which started this whole research of revenue management and pricing. Just looking at, let's say, those 2 things, can anyone think कौन सा industry होगा जिसमें they do these things a lot and they were the pioneer of pricing research?
Airlines.
Yep, exactly. So airlines were the industry who pioneered and started pricing, and that you all of you experience this. Like आज मैं अगर 3 महीने के बाद का टिकट बुक कर रहा हूँ, आज मैं कल का टिकट बुक कर रहा हूँ, the prices will be very different, and that's the dynamic pricing in action. Customer segmentation: first class people pay more, like economy pays less, and again, it's not that they receive exact same thing. Of course, first class service is slightly different, you have a lot more space, but for most people they would say that I don't think that's worth paying extra to get that smaller amount of benefits, but they still are able to have that because there's something called business travelers. So they have a different customer segment. They have business travelers, they have your regular travelers, they have your leisure travelers and stuff like that, and then they do price optimization on top of that. So this whole airline industry was where the pioneers of starting this pricing research. And currently the pricing problems which I mostly solve is within the transportation side at Amazon, not at the pricing of shirts or products, क्योंकि उसकी एक different pricing team है. What I primarily work with is when we have to move all the stuff. Drivers हैं, like independent drivers who would be moving stuff for Amazon, उनको कितना prices pay करने हैं. If they want to move something with Amazon, how much to charge them and those kinds of things. So pricing is a big like research problem in a lot of industrial spaces. And at a high level, these are the ideas we use in pricing. I'll stop for 1 minute here before let's say moving to the last slides. Okay, so coming back to the first part, that's if someone wants to move to this field right now, from whatever they're doing. So I would say definitely a basic understanding of machine learning is required, and that's where there are a lot of open source like courses which you can take.
डिम्पल
Sorry,
कागजी और मखाना कर दो ना खा के
no
जाए
worries. So there's a lot of like open source courses you can take, which you can help which can help you to understand what exactly machine learning does. But I think the second point is more important. Like if you have to just like build the models yourself. And again, it's not like I'm asking you to make up an algorithm and come from scratch. When I say build, I actually mean, like starting a software and implementing that. Like things are there, you just implement it and you see what's happening. And to begin with, when I think had recommended this, I mean, there probably might be even better websites and blogs now, but at least 6 7 years ago when I was recommending this to like a few other people, like other school students, these two were the websites which I found really helpful. There's this like website called Towards Data Science, which has a lot of information, and then there's this website called Kaggle, which has a lot of data where you can play with. And in Kaggle, I think they also have like probably pre-written and pre-made stuff where you just have to change a few things to see what happens and what gets you. But bottom line, अगर किन्हीं को move करना है, तो one thing is take at least one foundational course in machine learning. Just try to see what exactly it is, the terminology and stuff like that, and then start building yourself. And I like this comic a lot. That what exactly is machine learning doing? I'll just give just 1 minute to read or something. But the bottom line is just you have to like do it yourself and then realize what's happening. I mean, this is a comic, so it's in very like fun and joking way, but I would say this is actually true. A lot of times we precisely do this. We just try to see what works and what doesn't. And I'll come to the next, the question which was asked towards the very beginning, that someone, if wanting to go to this field, let's say if they're in college or just out of college, what can they focus on? Or even before that, what, like subjects they can focus on if they want to be someone working in data science. So computer science is definitely required because, as I mentioned, machine learning as a field which gives you algorithms to work on had been around for a long time, 70s 80s maybe tha. But what made it actually useful and working is the fact that we have computers which can solve problems very, very fast. So this does not mean that you need to take computer science as an undergraduate degree. This simply means that you need to have a working understanding of what we call basic algorithms, how do they work, and some level of experience of coding. Like I don't have a computer science major background, right? Like मेरा BTech computer science में नहीं था, but the point is you should just like make yourself familiar with these topics. And the coding thing is what I think someone had asked earlier कि कौन सा language use करना है. So I think in my experience Python is probably the best for data science. And first reason is probably, which is the reason for a lot of things. Why do you use this? Because other people use this, which is still true for Python. That why do we use Python for data science? Because most of the other people use data science for Python. The idea being that कि कोई भी किसी को किन्हीं को कोई प्रॉब्लम हो रही है उस पर्टिकुलर आइडिया में एल्गोरिदम में या मॉडल में, there will be like someone who would have the same issue, and then since they were working in Python, they would have something to alleviate that or like mitigate that issue in Python. So Python as a programming language is very, very far ahead than R or anything in currently doing data science. Like, and as we know, it's open source, anyone can contribute, and I am just like amazed by that aspect of computer science, that open source for someone, let's say, who's coming from totally outside. They would like, why are they doing this, उनको क्या मिल रहा है? And a lot of the times they're not getting anything, they're just doing just for the sake of good कि okay, someone is trying to use that, enjoy. Most of what is available in Python is open source, no one has paid them to write those things, but it's just amazing how well they work and how much improvement they keep having. So from that perspective, yes, Python should be the way to start. And the Kaggle data site or towards data science, they would have actual things where you can just like take it and run on Python and just try to see what happens. So that would be the way. And of course, understanding of statistics. And if you were reading the last comic, it did say linear algebra. And I do believe that a good understanding of linear algebra would help you. I'm not saying it's a must. Like I've seen a lot of data scientists who did not take linear algebra during college, because linear algebra is a course which you take during college, not school. But they still can, do machine learning pretty well. But if you have a like decent understanding of linear algebra, you would be able to understand algorithms क्या कर रहे हैं slightly better. And I just see that eventually in like you want to move down this chart, but again, you don't have to be in the last end where you're writing something so fancy which no one understands. You want to be somewhere in the middle, but okay. I'll just end with this example of when you're doing data science, don't do bad data science, and I'll just end with a comic here. So for people would have like some experience, there's something called extrapolation, where I mean in some sense all data science is doing is extrapolating. So like जो भी data you have available, you're trying to see what happened there, and you try to see what will happen next or something new. And regression karke, there's a technique which a lot of people use, and this is like a very extreme example of someone using regression to extrapolate how many number of husbands will someone have after few days, given that they had 0 yesterday and 1 today. Again, just extreme example, but just to demonstrate the fact that uh, things can be done in a bad way. And once in a while, I even see some very good analysis, detailed analysis, and then you find out that the code assumptions or the way they used a particular set of data was just wrong, and you can use it to represent whatever you want. I mean, we joke about this even in our company, and which is to some extent true. You can just choose your data first and then try to make it say whatever it wants to say. uh, I'll stop here. Again, I think I'm available for the next 30-40 minutes, even now and even later on, because I don't know how many people would have wanted to log off after only 1 hour. So, but like reached out with LinkedIn, email, whatever is comfortable to me. Like I love talking to new people. If anyone is interested in getting to know more field, or even how they can help someone get into the field if they are in college or something. More than happy to chat about that. So I'll stop here and let's discuss and take questions if someone has.
So if there are some questions from audience, like anyone, we can take now.
I have this one question so people have taken different paths to AI and machine learning. Uh, so, uh, so we have Apple that has a lot of focus on privacy, and once you make privacy the pivotal point, then the new data generation that takes a hit. And as far as I understand, see, like there is a lot of focus coming onto the privacy angle. So given that a lot of things have been done in machine learning till now, so going forward, does like it poses a challenge that because a lot of data would be stuck behind regulatory guidelines. So does that hamper the progress in the field?
So I would say two things on that. First is just regarding the privacy part itself. I think no one would have anticipated that data would become such a huge thing just in the 5-10 years. And as we know, for most of the things, the regulators always lag behind. They're always playing the catch-up game, for better or worse, like whatever the reason might be. But even in the US, they're always playing catch. 10 साल 15 साल, like I don't know how many of you are familiar with something called US में there is an act, उसका literally there is one provision in the act by which a lot of critics claim that companies like Google and Facebook were able to just scale up at that level. At the high level, the law says that if you are running a platform, then you cannot be held liable for something which some other person is doing on your platform. तो LinkedIn बोलेगा कि मैं थोड़ी लिख रहा हूँ वो post, like someone else is writing, so I'm not liable for that. And that definitely has helped. So to come back to your question, I think privacy is a very valid concern. Like moving forward, I have heard like some governments, might not be a national government, maybe like a local government, they were even like thinking about asking companies to pay people to get their like data, like just proper make it a good that no, it's not free. If you want to get my data, you'll have to pay me. Like I'm willing to sell it, but you'll have to pay me. So those kinds of things. So privacy is important, and I think regulators are playing catch up, but they will try to find some balance. And from my perspective, I think it's good that there are large companies which do take privacy seriously, like Apple. The second part of your question, that does that hamper progress, or like does it affect us in any way? So I would say that yes, it might hamper the rate of progress in some fields because you do want to get hands on the data to study that part. But I don't think overall, as long as it is collected in a way which it's still respecting the privacy. Like let me put it this way, like when I am trying to build an algorithm based on, we have data of our customers at Amazon, right? My algorithm does not need to exactly know whether this data is corresponding to Anupam or Krishna. Like I have to know that okay, ये किसी का data है, ये किसी का data है. Sure, I need to know some characteristics of those people, but the algorithm does not require literally like very private data to work. So I don't think from that perspective there is any issue there, that if we have a lot of privacy restrictions, then it will limit the progress in the machine learning field. Yes, what might happen is if there is only one or two companies collecting most of the data, and if they are not willing to share it that easily with other researchers who want to do that, yes, that is the limitation. But in most cases, I think privacy is a very valid concern, and I don't think as researchers we worry that, oh, just because of the privacy things, oh, this will be limiting or limited.
So just a related add-on question. So as far as I understand, so OpenAI, it came up. So I read it somewhere that it has already utilized all the data that has been present on the internet till few years back, and it is now concerned that it might not have enough data going forward. So they are like partnering with things and behind paywall. So is it that we have too much data processing capability and less amount of data getting generated? So is that a concern somewhere? Like,
If I understand the question correctly, is it more like is too much data might be a concern right now, or is it like we
no,
might not have too
going
much data?
forward, going forward, there might be less data and more processing capability. So is that a concern?
I don't think so. I mean, honestly, I think we would still lack in actual, computation or like computational power. So I don't think we are in a state where someone can say that, hey, well, I mean, okay, let me put it this way. If you're talking about a very specific thing, then sure, like for some specific thing, yes, we might not have a lot of data, but we have the actual computational power to do those tasks or do those kinds of things. But we're talking about like maybe generic fields. Overall, at a level, I don't think we are at a stage where we can say that we have less data, but we have a lot of computational power to work with. I don't think we are in that stage, and probably that will take. I don't think we will achieve that because, as I was, showing that comic, it says that well, you do more analysis on data, you generate more data. So I think that will always exist. Like you will always have more data, and the computational power will catch up to that. So yeah, short answer, I don't think there will be a concern like that.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
So if there are any other question, just to add on the privacy debate, Gautam, there is also another concern on the way data gets appropriated. And it's possible that there are few companies who who are the early movers in this field, like Amazon or Walmart or Flipkart, whose sense of create some sort of oligopoly. They have a lot of data and they understand the customer's choice better. They have entered in customer's phone to an extent that for a new player entering into that domain will be very difficult. So does this mean that there can be this crisis of divide that data is creating, some companies appropriating a lot and some not?
No, so my I think sense is that it more or less already happens. I mean, I'm not saying it's good. It's definitely not good overall. But point is, the concern or the like the risk is that not that it will something happen in the future. It already happens. Like sure, Google is very good in search, but I mean, as you most of you, some of you might have followed the like the recent current case going against Google in the US that they more or less run a monopoly in search, right? Like
Right.
Bing does not exist. Like I don't think anyone uses Bing. And if there is a new company which tries to do something in search, they won't be able to do that well. So that concern and that risk is there. And from my perspective, it's already here. Now, Google's argument is that, hey, we are doing really good research anyways. We are moving the field ahead. It's not like we are getting stuck. We are giving people new and new things. But that's an argument which is precisely the like opposite argument of what like economists would say that monopolies don't work because you cannot rely on the goodwill of like one or two people because in the future that might change. So okay, so what I'm saying is like I think that's a very valid concern that some of the companies who were the early movers in this, they have amassed a lot of data, and if they are not willing to share the data one way or the other, then overall I don't think it's a good setting.
Right.
And that's another reason Facebook as a company was so mad when Apple had those privacy rules that made it so difficult for Facebook to get data on iPhones. And someone might say that if I like Apple more than Facebook, I will say no, it's good for me. I would rather have my data with Apple. But in general, as a principle, I don't think that's nice. And that's where I think eventually policy will have to catch up. Like you will need an interference. These things cannot and will not automatically resolve. You need an external interference, and that's where I think we have regulators and policy makers to do that. So eventually, yeah, that will have to happen, and the risk of that happening is already, I would say, there. I don't think it's something in the future is already happening.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. So maybe we are also much beyond time, so maybe we can wrap it up. But yeah, if any of you want to connect Gautam, you can connect him anytime, and he can be a great mentor or guide in this field. So thank you, Gautam and Krishna, and thank you the team for organizing this. This has been a really interesting session for me, and I think everyone as such. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, so on that note, I would like to thank Kumar Goutam Da for sharing his invaluable insights on this topic. Data science is everywhere. We appreciate your time and willingness to share your knowledge with the RKMV fraternity. I would also like to extend my gratitude to our moderator, Anupam Da, for skillfully guiding the conversation and making the session engaging and informative. To our audience, thank you for investing your time in today's session. Your participation and engagement are what make these sessions truly special. With your permission, we'll conclude today's session. The recording will be uploaded to YouTube, allowing those who missed the session to benefit from the rich discussion. Thank you once again and have a nice day.
Thanks.
Thank you. So I'll just stop recording here.